You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks one-on-one with Keith Engle. Great to have you with me this morning. Let me chill this music here. We'll tell you what's going on here this morning. Again, good morning. Welcome, everybody watching us today on Facebook, YouTube, not Twitter anymore. Twitter you got to pay for. I'll look into it. There's different plans, only $8 a month or whatever. Well, we'll welcome everybody watching there, watching you live on Roku, the National Streaming Sports Roku channel. Get that downloaded. If you have the Roku app, it's very easy to do. We'll certainly thank all the groups that allow us to share as well. The Bottom Line Sports, Flo and the gang over there, John Gonzalez at the Sports Authorities, Greg Rawlings at America's Pastime, The Love of Baseball, and all of those many groups. There's the three that I like to point out because they're really great followers of the show, and I try to help them out as well. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. He does some great stuff over there. No longer going to be on the TV, it looks like, in Pittsburgh, but he still can find him on Facebook, YouTube, on Twitter, I'm sure, especially with the Sports Corner from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays with Smoking Jim Frazier. What else? A couple of housekeeping. So my guest today will be Jim Biringer, who you know as our hockey analyst and has been with me since the beginning. We'll get to know a little bit about Jim. We did a little interview. It's taped. It's pre-taped because Jim was traveling this weekend, as I will be. I'll talk about that in a second. We pre-taped this interview on Wednesday night, and I'll play it for you here in a little bit. You can still put your comments up. I'll share them. If they're questions, we won't be able to answer them, obviously. But if they're comments about what Jim is saying, you can certainly put them up, and I'll share them as I'll be here monitoring the broadcast. But we talked to Jim about how he got to where he is with Fullpresshockeycom, doing something he loves and getting to go now to the Stanley Cup and going to the draft and going to the Hall of Fame ceremonies and lots of stuff Jim has been able to do. And he's just really, we're so happy for him, what's happened to him over the last 4 years since he's been coming on our show. So we'll get into that, and we'll talk about all of the hockey news. Talk about the Panthers Cup win. We'll talk about the draft. Talk about the free agency, coaching carousel. A little bit of an outlook of who's in position to do well going forward. Good morning to Dave Guyette. How you doing? Good morning to Alex Simpson. Alec is Simpson, across the pond. Good to have you with us. Quick side note: I'll be starting that interview in just a few minutes. As I said, as your questions we won't be able to answer because we're going to be pre-recorded, as you'll see in the the banner at the bottom once I start the interview. But at the end and wrap it up. But quick side note, by the way, a couple of quick things coming up. Here's what we got coming up. August 2nd, Mike Bass, former defensive back with the Washington Redskins, famously ran back that Gary Yepremian pass in the Super Bowl in 1973, I believe. 72 season, 73 Super Bowl with the undefeated Dolphins. I met Mike Bass in the Bahamas 40 years ago, and we're going to have some fun with him. On the 9th, we'll have Brian McRae, former outfielder with Major League Baseball with several teams. He played with the Mets. He played for his dad, Al McRae, when he was with the Royals and came up with the Royals. The 16th, a little bit open. I thought I had maybe Rick Barry, NBA Hall of Famer Rick Barry but not sure I can make that happen. But speaking of great NBA players, on the 23rd, we've got Sidney Moncrief, former standout with Arkansas and the Milwaukee Bucks. And on the 30th, Ernie DiGregorio, Providence standout, and a Buffalo Braves standout when he came into the league. Had some injury issues that didn't let him proceed. But we'll have our Jim Biringer interview here in just a second. Again, pre-recorded. Put your comments up. I can share the comments. Questions won't get answered, obviously. And just a quick note, I'll be traveling to Mystics Seaport this weekend. We're going out probably shortly after we end the show today. We'll be back Monday morning, but I do plan on doing the Sunday Stream of Consciousness, assuming we have a strong enough internet feed. So we'll do the best we can Sunday morning, even if it's a shorter show. We're going with the whole family, so it's going to be busy and it could be noisy around me. So I will apologize ahead of time, and we'll catch you then. But before then, let me just see who else we got here. Jeremy's here. Good morning, Jeremy. Good to have you with us. The kneecap breakers. I forget your other handle there, Jeremy. But what we're going to do now is we're going to play the interview from Jim Biringer. You can put up comments. I'm going to check back periodically and put some comments up. I'll be here just doing a couple of things for work and whatnot. And then I'll come back and I'll end the show. So listen to our interview with our great friend, Jim Biringer, and I'll be back after. All right, guys, as I said in the intro, my guest today is the great Jim Biringer, who's you've seen many times on the Sunday Stream of Consciousness and other place with myself here on TGI Sports Talk. And he's got his own shows on Let's Talk Sports. He guests everywhere. He does little impromptu things, which you'll see from time to time, which I'll share. And he's got his main gig. I believe this is his main gig. Who knows these days at Fullpresshockeycom. And my guest today, Jim Biringer. How are you, Jim?
Keith, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here. Always a pleasure to talk with you, regardless of the sport, whether it's college football, hockey, doesn't matter. We like to touch them all.
Yeah, we'll concentrate on hockey today. We might have a couple of college football questions. Who knows? But before the night's out, if it pops up in our own conversation here, Jim, I've had you on my shows for years, and I talk about the fact that you write for Fullpresshockey.com and push people towards that for their hockey news and to Let's Talk Sports and different things. But we never really get to know Jim Biringer, the guy, and how did Jim get to where he is and doing what he's doing today? And what is it Jim likes to do? I know you like to cycle and play hockey and do all these outdoor stuff that tires me out just listening to you talk about. Tell us a little about Jim and I guess, getting to where you got to in this point in your life and where you plan on going.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just gravitated to the sport of hockey when I was a kid. For some reason, that was the sport I gravitated to. I was always a football guy. I liked football. Obviously, my dad was a Giants fan. So, look, I had the Giants gear, and when they won, and, you're celebrating that. But I was always a hockey guy, and I loved playing all sports. Like, shout out to my uncle who's moved on, passed on. But he always taught me, like, just don't focus on one sport. Focus, like, play all sports. That way you're not just good at one sport. You're good at everything, and everything can help your main activity. Right. I just love to be active. I love, I've always just had a thing for sports, and like I was doing it in school. Like my friends and I would always just talk about it. Water cooler talk, or before, grade school, we're talking about, oh, did you see Super Bowl last night? Breaking it all down. And as I got older, I just was like, oh, I want to start writing, and I want to like just give my thoughts someplace. So, I picked up like little jobs here and there, and No, I didn't. I actually went to school for history and economics. I didn't go to school for journalism. But the history side, there's a lot of writing, so you can hone your writing skills. But I had a lot of guys along the way to help me out, who toned in like the sports writing and everything. And you just put a lot of hard work and effort into it. You just never stop believing in yourself, never stop believing in a dream. And yeah, a lot of people rag on you about putting stuff out there, but you just let it go because what you're doing is right. And look, I love what I do. I love the fact that I can cover the Stanley Cup final, be at the Stanley Cup final, be at the NHL draft. I mean, I'm not going to say it was easy. It's not easy. It was hard work. There's a lot of hard work. It's still hard work. I mean, You got to put it in. There's long days. Like I tell people, there's a lot of long days. Come May and June, there's a lot of long days. A lot of long nights too. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do this. Yeah, okay. You better be mentally ready to do it and ready to get ready for a month of travel. And putting, you got to make priorities, and you got to be able to balance a lot of things in your life. And, you have to be mentally strong to get through it, because it does wear you out. You feel like you're in the National Hockey League. You feel like you're covering this sport. Because once July 1st comes, once free agency is over, you're just like, all right, I'm done. Like, I'm ready. It's over. Thank God it's over, because it's just all the travel. But like I said, you just get there, you meet up with the right people, you get hooked up with the right sites, and, people just allow you to be yourself, and then you just start doing things. And like I said before, when I've talked to people, like, if it wasn't for COVID, I don't know if I would be podcasting, because I hadn't done it before then. But then
Right.
COVID came around, and then, okay, well, we got nothing better to do, so why not, right? So here we are, and that's why we have the Full Press NHL podcast, Final Word on Hockey, on all these guest spots. And again, I started as a caller to a lot of these places, like, Mike Richards up in Canada was on TSN. I was a caller. Rob Peterson, I was a caller. I interacted a lot on SiriusXM before they realized, okay, he's serious. He knows what he's doing. He's serious. No pun intended, but he knows what he's doing, and he's into his business. And here we are today. So I'm just grateful for the opportunities that they give me, and this is where I am today.
You have goals to get further. What's your ultimate? Where would you ultimately like to be in the world of sports or hockey in general, since hockey's your main forte?
I mean, look, I'd like to be, a goal of mine definitely be a regular on SiriusXM NHL Network Radio. That would be like a goal of mine as well. Definitely be consistently featured on like NHL Network, stuff like that. That would be cool for me. Just because, those places, it seems like everybody's on those things. I mean, I got my foot in the door with SiriusXM, so, let's see if it becomes a more consistent thing, then yeah, I'll be happy with that. Just continue to do what I do, get better. Just be able to, okay, I've covered the Devils, I've covered the league, been to more finals, but consistently just do it every day. And I just want to get better at it. And I think that's the ultimate goal.
It's really cool for me, because you've been coming on my shows pretty much since COVID, and I started doing this in 2020. And, to see now, again, I mean this in the best, it probably won't come out right, but to see where we were then and you are now, you're, like you said, now you're sending me pictures and videos from the Stanley Cup finals and from the Hall of Fame and from the draft, and you're front and center to a lot of history. And it's got to be really cool it's cool for me to watch you see that evolution. And I'm glad it's happening, because you're a good guy. I like to see that good things happen to good people.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. No, I appreciate that. Like, so many people have reached out to me after the Stanley Cup final, the draft, all that stuff. They're like, congratulations, you made it. We've been following you. Never forget your boys. I'm like, I never forget the guys. I never forget the guys who supported me, everybody who supported me. I've never forgot all those people, from the beginning. We talk with, like, from the beginning out in the rinks and everywhere. We just, BS about stuff. But, to be there for the Hockey Hall of Fame, to be there for the Stanley Cup final, the drafts, the Stadium Series, different events, it's really amazing. And then just to interact with everybody, it's really cool.
You are something of a local rink legend, from what I can see on Facebook. Are your dreams done of playing in the NHL, Jim, or can we?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're over. I mean, let's be honest.
Someday on the Hockey Network or something.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, maybe one day you get hooked up with a team, and then you can win a Stanley Cup, maybe general manager, or in the hockey ops department somewhere, or as a writer, get your name on a cup, or just being around it. That would be cool, like, just to cover it. But it's the days of playing in the National Hockey League are over, but I still play, and I still love the game, and I love to be around it, because you can learn everywhere. Like, you're not just from the pros, but you just go around the rinks and you just talk with people, and it's just really cool.
And I think you won another championship this year.
Yeah.
Your amateur league, for lack of a better term. Let me ask you a question. If you did, I guess I'll ask this before we go on to some real hockey stuff. So, in the dream world of Jim Biringer, you win the Stanley Cup. What are you doing with the Stanley Cup when it's your turn?
That's a good question. I've thought about that before. This is not like this hasn't crossed my mind about, where I would go for a day with it. A lot of guys go to their hometowns. A lot of guys, go to different spots with it, right? Like, I thought about it. I think to be honest, to be fair, I think I'd probably bring it to Vermont and just hang out with everybody in Vermont with the Stanley Cup, just because it's like a second home to me. But I think if they were allowing me 2 days with it, I would have 1 day in Jersey and 1 day in Vermont, just because that's just what I would love to do, just because there's so many people everywhere. But it's the Stanley Cup, and it attracts everybody, right? Like, that's the thing about that's the beauty of that trophy. Doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter if you're a hockey fan or not. You hear the Stanley Cup's coming around. You want to be with it, right? You want to see it. You want to see the names. You want to do all that stuff. You don't touch it. Well, I mean, I don't touch it. Everybody else can touch it if they want to. I don't touch it. But, again, you have to win it to touch it. And I tell everybody, I said, obviously the Stanley Cup is the best one to win, but I could just have my MVP trophy. Mr. Conn Smythe and I can just hang out all day too.
Well, if I was somewhere in that dream sequence, I would remind you that whatever you do with it, just remember some of the guys that had it before you, and that hygiene may not be the best thing. So
I know. Yeah, no. I mean, luckily they cleaned that thing. I've met Pritchard. He's a good dude. Phil Pritchard, the keeper of the cup, he's a good dude. Like, some of the stuff like that, it was like, with the stuff that you saw the Florida Panthers doing with it, not the smartest decisions to do with the Stanley Cup, just because of the way it's metal. So it does. There are things in there that there are things that were done to it that should not be done to it.
Yeah, well, that's probably happened for decades and decades and decades. What's this guy's name who takes care of it again?
So Phil Pritchard is the keeper of the cup. So the story behind it goes, when the Rangers last won the Stanley Cup in 1994, they lost it. And I think it ended up at like a flower shop. And so after that, they're like, nope, we got to have somebody around with the cup at all times. It's like, we're done.
Does Phil have a special hazmat suit he has when he deals with that?
He's got his gloves. He's got his white gloves. He's got everything, So Phil's a good dude. The Stanley Cup was cool. We got to see it when we were down in Florida. I got to see the Conn Smythe Trophy, all the awards out in Vegas. So it's, again, it's the Stanley Cup. A lot of people just, again, gravitate towards it. A lot of people and a lot of fans and sports fans love it when the Stanley Cup playoffs are on, because everybody says it's the most exciting playoffs in all sports, just because of the overtime, the drama, everything that you can see in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So again, I might be biased because I cover the sport, but I still think the Stanley Cup is the most hardest trophy to win in all of sports. It's
certainly one of the most historic, and it's, gosh, when there's no better game sevens. We talked about this Stanley Cup hockey. Game sevens, and we'll start, I guess, to get to hockey a little bit. Let's start by going back, because we haven't had a chance to chat. You've been busy and stuff going on. We haven't had a chance to chat since we had really a tremendous Stanley Cup final with Florida and Edmonton. And Edmonton tried they put themselves in a big hole, but dug themselves out and tried very, very much to become that first Canadian champion in over 30 years. What are your thoughts overall on the final and the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers?
Yeah, great series, right? I mean, at first it didn't look like it was going to be a great series. It was 3-0 Florida. Looked like, it seemed like it would be a sweep, 5 games, okay, kind of figured that. Edmonton runs out of gas, okay, but then they make it a series, right? It's all of a sudden, after game 5, everybody in Florida, we were talking and we're just like, yeah, we're coming back for 7. Like, after Edmonton won game 5, we're just like, yeah, we're coming back. Like, we're coming back, and that's the deal. So, Edmonton goes back home. They win in front of the raucous crowd. They come back for 7, right? And they were playing with their playoff lives on the line, right? They had been playing, but now it was amplified, right? It was amplified a little bit more, because now one win, not only is your season over, but you could win the Stanley Cup. And the Florida Panthers had this was their 4th chance to win the Stanley Cup. Okay, game 4, okay, you knew Edmonton, all right, whatever. You go back home and you lay that stinker, and it's like, uh-oh. And then here we go. Edmonton brings it back again. Look, it was a tightly contested game 7. I thought it was a really good game 7, fast-paced, underrated. Some people didn't like it. I don't know what they were watching then. I don't know what they were expecting, because game 7 is usually tightly contested, good defenses. But it's fast-paced first period, back and forth. Look, the Edmonton Oilers had their chances to win game 7. They had their chances in the second period. Kulikov off the goal line, that leads to the Reinhart goal. Bobrovsky played well, look, and, they had their chances and they just couldn't score. And, Florida figured out a way to just lock it down defensively, and they just had a really good game. But the crowd was raucous, a lot of Oilers fans there, a lot of Panthers fans in the house. The building was loud. Just being there, it was great to cover it, talk to the players after the game, being on the ice. Florida Panthers, first championship in 30 years. They've been around for 30 years. Their first Stanley Cup, tasted a Stanley Cup. And, Florida's a hockey state now. You had the Lightning win three times going back to 2004.
Yeah.
The Panthers win now 5 straight years with a team from Florida going to Stanley Cup final. Bill Zito, they talk about it, right? Like, a lot of people ask me, after the fact and, what it was like on there. And like I said, you go back to the commercial. I go back to it. No words. There's no words to describe that feeling at that time, even as a reporter. There's nothing like it. Being on the ice, seeing the cup, talking to everybody. Bill Zito, he did a great job putting together a team to win a Stanley Cup, to come back. The Panthers, the first team since the 2008 Penguins to lose the previous year and then win in 2009. The Penguins did that against Detroit. So, I mean, that's a tall task to get back there after losing the year before. But Florida, let's be honest, I think Florida was the best team in the Eastern Conference the whole year, and probably one of the best teams in the National Hockey League the whole year. So you can say in the end, the best team won. But you got to tip your hat to what the Edmonton Oilers did and tried to accomplish. I mean, look, the fact that they were the first team since the 1945 Detroit Red Wings to force a Game 7 after going down 3-0, that says a lot.
If I'm not mistaken, there's only a few teams that have ever forced a Game 7 in any sport after being down 3-0. Only 3 teams in all of sports have ever come back. 2 of them being in the National Hockey League. Red Wings came back and won one, I believe, and then Toronto return the favor?
Toronto did it. So Toronto did it to Detroit in 1942. Detroit tried to return the favor in 1945 and didn't, and came up short. But that was the only time in the Stanley Cup final it's happened. So this would have been the second time in 80 years in the Stanley Cup final that a team would have won coming down 3-0. Yeah. It has happened in previous rounds. Like, we've seen it over the years. Like, the Flyers did it in 2010. LA did it to 2014, I believe, against San Jose. And there's probably another one. There's been teams that have forced Game 7. Like, I believe Chicago in 2011, they were down 3-0 to Vancouver in the first round, forced Game 7, but lost.
Yeah.
And there's been the Islanders did it to the Penguins, and I believe 75. They were able to come back, but that was earlier rounds. The Oilers matched the Devils of 2012 to be the second team down 3-0 on the Stanley Cup final to even force a Game 6.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a tall task. And look, the Oilers just ran out of gas. You could tell, right? They just ran out of gas. They just ran out of steam. It's so hard to win 4 straight games against a team like that. You have to have everything go right for you for 4 straight games. Very, very tough.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about other sports and teams overcoming 3-0 deficits, but that would make me talk about the Red Sox, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so. I don't want to talk about that either.
One of the bleakest 7 days of my
sport. Oh, that was so awful.
That and a couple Super Bowl Sundays, but that's for another show. So since that, we've got a new champion, obviously. And since then, we've had the draft. Give us your thoughts on the draft. I guess quickly an overview, and who are the winners and losers in your mind, whether players or teams or whatever it might be, franchises in the draft this year.
Yeah, so draft was out in Vegas, very hot, like Florida, even extremely hot in Vegas, 115 degrees seemed like every day. It was very hot and muggy, and it wasn't muggy because there's no humidity out there, but it was just hot. But the Sphere was very cool. If you ever get a chance to go to Las Vegas, please go check this out. This thing is awesome.
Heard that it was awesome.
The Sphere was awesome. Just to be around it, you see everything on the screens up on the wall. Outside they had Connor McDavid, all the pictures of the players. just to be around everybody, just talking. And it was the last like centralized draft for the NHL because now they're gonna go to NFL mode, do what the NFL does. But they're gonna have some things that are different as well. It'll be cool. It'll be good looking. But the draft was awesome. I think they need to go back there again. Look what the NHL is doing. First professional sports team in Vegas of the 4 major sports. They had Vegas Golden Knights. They also get the championship there. Now they're the first of the 4 major sports to hold the draft there. The other teams or sports want to go to Vegas now and do it. So they've been they're the trendsetters there, right? But it was awesome. Vegas Golden Knights were awesome. Great organization. Vegas, classy as always. And, Sphere was excellent. People were nice. It was awesome to see to be in there and just hear, a couple of teams for me that stood out draft day. I thought the Montreal Canadiens did really well with their picks, especially in the first round. The Hague kid and then Demidov, I really thought those were 2 excellent picks for that franchise. And we saw Celine Dion there to announce their first round pick. I thought the San Jose Sharks did an amazing job. Obviously, notwithstanding Macklin Celebrini, I thought there are other draft picks that they put together for that team to set themselves up really, really well for the future. Again, it's so hard to say winners and losers in terms of a draft because a lot of these kids, they're not playing in the National Hockey League right away. But you can say to yourself, okay, the picks, a lot of people were scratching their heads on certain players and certain picks, like the Anaheim Ducks, for instance, like, Brett Seneke, like, did he really need to go that high? I mean, the look says it all. I mean, what he mouthed was just that was great.
Ever maybe in a draft.
Yeah. Like that was great. Like, they're like, what? Okay. But again, you have to trust these teams to know what they want. Like, they're going off their board. Okay. Right. We may not agree with it, but they believe in something that they see on their board. So you go off of that. I thought the Devils did a great job with Saliev, the big Russian defenseman. I thought they did a great job. Again, you don't know what these players are going to be, but it was interesting to see, as we went through, like, we'll talk on free agency, but we go through this process. A lot of these players have already signed their entry-level deals in the National Hockey League, which is something that's huge, right? Celebrini is going to be playing with San Jose. They got Eklund, this Will Smith, all those guys. Like, they're putting together a really good team. And you got to get, again, the way they did it, okay, there's some head-scratching decisions, but Mike Greer's put together, a team for the future that's going to compete. They're not going to compete right away. They're still going to be a bad team, but they're going to be a good team. Like, Chicago had some nice draft picks. They had the kid from Michigan State as well, a 2nd overall. So, I mean, teams put together their future with these draft boards. Again, you could say, all right, was he drafted too high? Probably. But again, you won't know what these players are going to be for a couple of years because they're either going to play junior, college, and they may not see NHL time. The ones are going to play, but the others may not.
Well, goaltenders don't go in the first round anymore, it seems. I mean, it seems like 3. Am I wrong? 3 of the last 4 years, no goaltenders in the first round, or is it something close to that?
Yeah, I think the last goalie taken in the top 10 was Askarov by the Predators. Yeah. That was, I believe, like 2019, maybe 2020. I think that was the last time that a goalie went that high. Goalies don't normally go that high. It's just something, right? Because you can get them later rounds. They're going to take time to develop. Defensemen, right? Defensemen are, sometimes take a little bit longer. But again, it was a deep draft. And again, like I said, I thought Montreal, I thought Chicago did well. I thought San Jose, I thought those teams really stood out to me. Again, like, you look at the Rangers, they really have much to choose from. Boston's pick was a little bit, off the board a little bit. But again, they had to trade back in because they were able to get a first-round pick because of the Linus Ullmark deal. But again, it's not so much about the picks that come in. It's more about the action off the ice. Like, day 2, we saw a ton of trades, right? Utah got into it. Tampa sends out Sergachev. They pick up Marino. Logan Thompson went to Washington. We had some trains beforehand. We saw Mangiapane go from Calgary to Washington. Like when we get into free agency, we can talk about like teams that really improved that I liked. The Washington Capitals are up there because I didn't think they could keep this window open, but they found a way to do it. But there was so much action on day 2, like you couldn't keep up with it. Like this guy was going, this guy was going, this guy was going. And like you said, you look at it and Tampa's just like, all right, well, so we're going to move out money and we're going to bring in McDonough and we're going to get Getzel, but we don't want to keep Stamkos. And again, we can get into that, but I mean, there's just a lot of eye-opening moves that happen. Like a lot of teams position themselves early in the draft to sign their players that they wanted for free agency.
I feel like the NCAA hockey was a bit of a winner too, with the first 2 picks which is not a commonplace occurrence these days with all the foreign players that were coming through the draft. So I thought it was good for college hockey too.
Yeah, I think they had like the first 4 picks, all NCAA guys. So that was really good. Again, the U.S., the college guys, a lot of guys were going top 10, top 20, which is good. You see, you think about it now, a lot of Canadians want to play college hockey too because of the junior system. So, sometimes they can't get a shot in playing junior up in Canada. They want to come across the border now and come and play. And because college hockey is such a great name and a lot of great teams, obviously Michigan State, Boston University, Boston College, the old horses that still run the show up there, in Denver's, the North Dakotas, teams like that. But again, to see a big winner like the way to see USA Hockey, the way it's come, the development program, how well the players have transitioned to the National Hockey League, college hockey is in general really taking a major step. This is what you want to see, right? USA Hockey's come a long way after being, not so good for many years, right? They were not very good. I mean, college hockey's always been good, but it's never been on the stage that it's been in now. Now you're seeing it more.
I'll tell you, just a few years ago, probably more than a few years ago now, but not that long ago, the Frozen Four was here in Albany, and it was an event and a lot of fun because you get there's serious hockey fans at these events.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and I think it's coming back to Albany here in the next one of the next rotations, and I hope it does because it was a lot of fun, and I'll certainly attend again.
Oh well, I mean, real quick transition here. Since you mentioned the Frozen Four, we can talk about now with Utah and the league.
Yeah.
Now, what a get now for Ryan Smith. The 2034 Olympics are going back to Salt Lake City. Those are one of the most successful Winter Olympics and one of the most successful hockey tournaments back in 2002. USA Canada in both the women's and men's played for gold medal. So I mean, that's a huge get for everybody. I mean, it's a long ways away, but the National Hockey Leaguers will be there. But again, we're finally getting international hockey again next year with the Four Nations face-off, and then we got the Olympics after that. So it's good to see, international hockey with the NHLers back.
Yeah, I'm excited about the Four Nations tournament next year for sure. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. So as far as the draft, to wrap up the draft, is there a guy that went a lot lower than you thought he would go, and we should keep an eye out for next year?
No, I mean, I think I mentioned Saliev before. I didn't think a lot of people thought he would fall to the Devils to where he was, but he's not going to be. He was at rookie camp, but he's not coming over. But other than that, I think like I said, I think the Seneke pick was one of the ones that were just off the board. And other than that, things just kind of just day one was like, all right, that's fine. Day one was day one, and day two was where all the action was.
Well, Seneke helped the draft himself with his reaction shot going viral the way it did. So
that was great.
That was pretty cool. So free agency, which we've just I guess we're I don't know if we're done. We're not really done necessarily.
No, I mean technically it's still ongoing. It's still the big day is over.
So what are your thoughts there? Again, surprises, winners and losers, if you will. What are your thoughts on free agency overall?
All right, so there's some things that make you stand out and go, whoa. The fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning could never figure out a contract for Steven Stamkos, That was very, very head scratching. That stood out to me. They decided to make a choice to go with Jake Getzel over Steven Stamkos. Again, it's their choice. Julian Breezewald has made one mistake so far, and that was the Tanner Jeannot deal, and he moved him out, and he was able to free up money, and everybody thought it was for Stamkos. Obviously, Hedman gets his new deal 4x8, but you're telling me you couldn't give Stamkos the Evgeny Malkin deal in Pittsburgh, and he gets 4x8 in Nashville. Nashville just loads up, right? Like Nashville, to me, Barry Trotz, what he's doing down in Nashville, and we have a buddy in common who doesn't like Barry Trotz, but yeah, Carlos doesn't like Barry Trotz, but that's okay. But what he's doing in Nashville, putting a winner together, getting the right players in there, the fact that they landed Steven Stamkos, the fact that they got Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, Scott Wedgwood, get all their players in, Alexander Carrier signed, UC Saros signed to an extension. He's putting together a winning team. And to think of this, so it's fun. It's not like an NBA thing here, but Marchessault and Stamkos kind of talked. They didn't talk about joining the same team, but it wasn't like, well, if you sign, I sign. But It was like, oh, well, I heard you were going, so that's why I'm going. And same with Brady Shea. Like he heard on Twitter, oh, I want to join these guys. So they're changing the narrative down there in Nashville, right? And they've become one of the better teams in the National Hockey League, entering the season. Look, I mentioned Washington before. I thought they did a really good job, at free agency to up their team. New Jersey, obviously, with Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon, and you add Thomas Tatar, Stefan Nason, you get heavier, physical. Before that, they bring in Jacob Markstrom. They fill areas of need that they need to fill. Chicago, Patty Maroon, Tyler Bertuzzi. You bring in guys like that to surround the young kid like Connor Bedard. Then you look at, Boston to me, look, Boston and Elias Lindholm, look, I think that's a love-hate relationship for me with the contract. I knew he was going to get a lot of money because centers are at a premium, but the 7 years is a little long for me just because I don't know, what he can produce over 7 years. Zadorov, same thing. I like Zadorov as a player, but again, the contract length to me is something that stood out, similar to what we see in Seattle. I just had a podcast drop with Rob Simpson of SeattleHockeyInsider.com. We talked about this with Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson. I thought those deals were a little long in the tooth. And like every contract you sign could be a buyout candidate, and you don't want to be pessimistic. But it's just so hard to see like those players making it through those contracts up in Seattle just because of so many changes that were up there. I'm trying, you look at it, Buffalo to me didn't really do a lot. I mean, yes, they have their goaltender signed, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, before arbitration, 5 years at $4.75 million. That just got done. But, they really didn't address a lot. The Buffalo Sabres, they buy out Jeff Skinner. And you look at the Edmonton Oilers, we mentioned them earlier, right? Team that goes to the Stanley Cup final. You bring back Corey Perry. You bring back Adam Henrique. Yeah, you lose some stuff on the back end, right? Some guys are going to get paid like Vinny Desharnais. But you're able to bring in Victor Arvidsson, Jeff Skinner. But most of the band is back together. The team that lost, and now they're going to make the priority is going to trying to get Leon Draisaitl signed to a long-term extension. And that's going to be the hot topic of conversation, right? A lot of these guys are saying, oh, well, it was July 1st. They're eligible for extensions. Well, these things take time. Like we see in Pittsburgh, it takes time with Sidney Crosby. And the Penguins, to me, did some moves that there's some head scratchers there. But you look at what the Champs did, right? They keep Reinhart, 8-year deal. They extend Anton Lindell. They keep Kulikov. Toronto, they added Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Chris Tanev. They really improved. The East got really tough and really big real quick for a lot of these teams. Like Detroit did well. You get Tarasenko. You keep Kane. You add on the back end a little bit. I thought Carolina took a step back because they lost so much. And Teravainen's back in Chicago. So, you bring in Gostisbehere back, okay, but is he what they had on defense? I think Carolina took a step back, and they're still waiting on Marty Necas. A lot of the RFAs now, similar with Boston, right, with Jeremy Swayman, you're still waiting on it if he's going to get his new deal. I liked what Ottawa did. You bring in David Perron, but do they have the right mix there? The Maple Leafs were able to keep Max Domi. So, again, just teams improving, but then there are teams, you're like, Anaheim really didn't do much. Yeah. Are they building towards the future? What was their deal about? I like what Utah did. I thought they did pretty well. Tampa, I think, kind of took a step back, even though they have Jake Getzel and Victor Hedman, but they didn't really replace a lot of guys. I don't know if Anthony Duclair is the answer on Long Island either. I don't know if that's the scoring threat you need there to win. But I thought overall, the teams that needed to improve improved. Use free agency wisely. Now, there's always bad money that gets handed out. But other than that, I thought a lot of teams really improved in areas of need that they needed to.
What about the local teams? We'll talk about, the Rangers had a bit of a disappointing end to their season. We know where the Devils were. Well, they changed coaches. What are your thoughts on the three local teams as far as the coaching change in New Jersey, the Rangers offseason, the Islanders offseason? Who do you think came out ahead here and has the best prospects going forward locally going into next year?
Well, I always think that, the New Jersey – look, I think the Rangers are still a good team, but they didn't really address their top six wing position. They still have an issue there. I don't know if Riley Smith's going to be the answer up on the top line. I think you're going to have to let Capo Caco get a look. I really, really do. If you're Chris Drury and that coaching staff, you qualified him. He signed it. He's still a tradable asset, right? $2.4 million isn't a lot for a team to take on, but I think you have to go let him cook, right? You have to go let him see what you got up at that top line. You drafted him second overall for a reason. Alexis Lafreniere came into his own playing with better players. I think it's now time to get Capo Caco off the third line and figure out what he can do. I don't think Riley Smith's the answer. They haven't been able to find an answer since Vetrano left. So I think that's something that they're going to have to look in. Other than that, they really didn't do much. Obviously, the big thing is Igor Shesterkin, and he's eligible for a contract extension on July 1st. Obviously, that's not done yet, and it may not get done for a while. It may drag into the season because, from what I'm hearing, he wants $11 million, and you don't blame him because it feels like it's Henrik Lundqvist 2.0 with this team.
It does.
I mean, you look if it wasn't for, and I said this multiple times, multiple places, if it wasn't for Igor Shesterkin, the New York Rangers don't even get to see 6 games against the Florida Panthers. They may not even get past Carolina if it's not for Shesterkin.
Yeah,
he's the straw that stirs the drink, to use the Reggie Jackson phrase, in the New York Yankees. He really is, because the offense continues to go dead in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the big thing is now, what about Jacob Trouba, right? Like, that's the big rumor. He's vetoed a couple of trades. Obviously, family issues and stuff that's going on. But the Rangers would love to use his cap space because it's $8 million that they're tying up right now. And it's not like Drury signed him to that deal. He's not committed, but he doesn't want to use the buyout. And they still have to sign Lindgren to an extension. You flip over to the Islanders, right? To me, they still need offense. They still need offense. Let's see if you can get another year. Bo Horvat, Barzell, guys like that. I don't know if Anthony Duclair is an answer there. You got a lot of long contracts for a lot of guys that just are average players. They weren't able to move out Pajot. That's a team, again, consistently, they just can't score goals. And then obviously we mentioned the Devils before, and I think they're the biggest winner in the Metro Division right now. The areas of need that they needed to get, right? They get the new head coach, Sheldon Keefe comes in. You look what Keefe did in Toronto with that defense, with those players. They get the game
seasons.
Right. They have great dominating regular seasons. Yeah. Good. You turn Austin Matthews, you turn Mitch Marner into Selke Trophy finalist. You say to yourself, okay, but this team they didn't come up short in the playoffs. But now he's got a better roster, especially on defense, right? The Dougie Hamiltons, the Siegenthalers. You have Luke Hughes, Nemec. You got the guys that you added in, Dylan, Pesci, DeSimone's there. Kovacic is there as well. They've added a lot of depth. You have Markstrom and Allen as a 1-2 punch. You have Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes. You have Timo Meier. I think Timo Meier, you're going to see a different Timo Meier now. You're going to see the Timo Meier you saw at the second half of the season. And I think the fact of the matter is the way he got that Maple Leafs team to play defense in games 5 through 7 was very impressive. If they only could have played that way, Toronto, in games 1 through 4, this might be a different outcome, and Sheldon Keefe may not be the New Jersey Devils head coach right now just because he was So I think the Devils took a step in the right direction. I also think they should be a playoff team this year because of what they did. They're tougher to play against. Now everybody's going to say, well, the new head coach takes time to adjust the system. I think these players are motivated enough. You got a motivated head coach that, got kicked to the can a little bit. You got players that know they underperformed. I think the Devils are going to come out of the blocks firing, and I think the Devils are going to make the playoffs, and there's no reason they can't compete for a top 3 spot in the Metro Division. There's no reason for it. Barring major injury, there is no reason for the Devils not to make the playoffs this year.
To extend this to further out west, Lindy Ruff leaves and goes back to Buffalo, where he had a good playing career. He coached for a long time in Buffalo. He had some pretty good success, and the team was getting better last year. Do you think that Lindy Ruff going back to Buffalo is the answer there, or will have a positive impact this coming year?
I think they'll play defense better, but I don't think he's the answer. He signed it for 2 years. Yeah. So he's a 2-year fix for a solution. You want these guys to play better? There's been so many missteps with the Buffalo Sabres, and I hate to pick on the Buffalo Sabres because they have such a great fan base, and they deserve to have a team that can make the playoffs because they were a consistent playoff team. But to recycle Lindy Ruff just for 2 years is, okay, so you don't want to make the playoffs. You want to miss the playoffs for 15 straight years. There's been a lot of guys, a lot of draft picks with the Buffalo Sabres they gave up on, and they rotated coaches way too many times. They have a great defense. They just don't have the weapons to put it together. They think they need to pair somebody with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, their goaltender. I still think they should have got another backup goalie. They didn't really address their offensive needs. They have a lot of great prospects that come up. But again, they traded Matthew Savoy to Edmonton for Ryan McLeod. So another prospect, another draft pick that you selected could potentially go play for Stanley Cup. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's your prerogative as Kevin Adams as the general manager. But from looking at it from an outsider, it says to me that the Buffalo Sabres are still not ready to make the playoffs. And you could have waited one more year to buy out Jeff Skinner. The cap hit would have been much easier on you. But again, they want to miss the playoffs. I'm saying it right now that the Buffalo Sabres are not making the playoffs next year. It's going to be 14 straight years and not made them. Because if you look at the division, Detroit's better. Tampa's still there. Boston, Toronto, Florida, Montreal's better. Ottawa's in front of you. Like, tell me who you're knocking out of the Atlantic Division. Oh, right. We didn't even get to the Metro. Oh, well, the Devils are better. Carolina's still there. The Rangers, Islanders, Washington, Pittsburgh, Columbus. Like, there's still a lot of good teams that are out there. So I think the Buffalo Sabres are missing the playoffs. And I don't think Lindy Ruff's the answer. I just, look, the way he's handled certain players, and again, I've seen him the last couple of years in Jersey. Yes, he had Andrew Burnett as an assistant, but last year the Devils took a step back. Now that's also on Tom Fitzgerald for not putting the roster together for him, for putting the tools in the toolbox, but it's also catering to certain players too. Like, he really didn't want to criticize Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes because, those guys, Jack saved his job the 1 year, and they basically let him do whatever he wants. Was it the right decision? No, but again, he picked on certain guys, didn't let certain guys go. I just don't think it's the right decision. There were so many other guys out there. I understand we like this recycling thing, but I think if you're going to go with a recycle, maybe you go with a Gerard Gallant, because that's a guy that's proven that he can get some things done. Lindy Ruff had 2 good goaltenders that got him deep in playoffs. Yeah. Outside of that, he hasn't really done much. He didn't really go far in Dallas. Was an okay assistant with the Rangers, and got lucky the 1 year and went to the second round, and his goaltending and defense got exposed by an experienced Carolina team.
Well, that's pretty well said. So a few other coaching moves. I mean, I obviously think Sheldon Keefe is a home run there. Any other moves that you think will really impact some franchises? Obviously, the Kraken, speaking of recycling coaches, have done one with Dan Biles.
Dan Biles moved back up from the American Hockey League. He's got Jessica Campbell, the first assistant, full-time assistant in the NHL. But again, the Kraken still don't have the offense that they need now. I think they can improve from last year, but it's going to, again, the division is so tough. You have Edmonton, you have LA, Vancouver. Those are teams that are already in front of you. Can you knock one of those teams out of there? It's going to be very, very tough. And I think, it's so hard. Obviously we know San Jose, Anaheim isn't great. Calgary's not a great team either. But again, you're sitting in fifth, I believe. So, they got to figure out some things there. They got to figure out a way to score some goals and get back to scoring some goals. A lot of guys had some disappointing seasons last year, and the body language wasn't the greatest. But I think, he can improve the team. Obviously we have Dean Evison in Columbus. I think they want to get a veteran guy in there, similar to what we saw with Babcock. But I think they were trying to get Todd McClellan. That this didn't work out with the money. Same with Jay Woodcroft. So they go with Dean Evison. Don Waddell's the new GM there. We have Eric Tulsky down in Carolina as well. Rob Brendamore stays down there, which was kind of a foregone conclusion. But, they have Sean Monahan. Let's see if Sean Monahan can help out Johnny Gaudreau. And let's see what Dean Evison can do with this young Blue Jackets team. Again, not that they're going to make the playoffs or anything, but they got to be able to make the next step because, it's time for Columbus. They've taken too many steps back, and they have some good players on that team. So I think, obviously Bosma, Keefe was a great hire. Scott O'Neill up in Winnipeg, not a surprise. He took over for Rick Bowness, who retired. So, that one wasn't too much of a shocker because he had filled in during the year when Bowness had some personal family issues and the team played well. And you go back, Winnipeg really didn't do much in free agency this year either. They lost some players. There's still talk about Rutger McGroarty getting traded. There's still talk about Nikolai Ehlers moving on. So, there's, again, the Winnipeg Jets coaching situation, again, I think Scott O'Neill, they have a good team, but teams in, Nashville passed them by, right? Dallas is still a threat. Colorado's still a good team. What's St. Louis going to do? They took the interim tag off their coach. So things are wide open.
The one we haven't talked about is a team you seem to be high on some of their offseason moves in Toronto. Speaking of teams,
Craig Berube, new head coach up there. I like the Chiefs coming in there. That one was a kind of a I'd say there's a couple worst kept secrets, not so worst kept secrets. Craig Berube to the Toronto Maple Leafs was not the worst kept secret in the National Hockey League. Like Stan Bowman becoming the new general manager of the Edmonton Oilers is not the worst kept secret. Like we all knew that was coming once he got reinstated. It's like, oh well, we need somebody experienced. Okay, we'll just call Stan Bowman. But I think Craig Berube is going to bring something different to this team, right? Because there's been all this talk about Mitch Marner going to get traded. Where is he going to go? It can still happen. But I think Craig Berube wants to get his teeth into the player. He wants to see what he can do. And the biggest question is, can he get this team to perform in the playoffs and play a certain way in the playoffs? Because Craig Berube has a certain coaching style. Guys like it. Certain guys don't, but they need a kick in the pants. And we're going to see what happens with Toronto Maple Leafs. I like that one. Travis Green's up in Ottawa. That's a good move for them. I think that he'll be able to improve this team. But again, the division is just so tough.
Yeah.
But the big question is where Mitch Marner goes is, does he get an extension? Does he get traded? What do the Toronto Maple Leafs do? I kind of think we know John Tavares isn't going to come back next year. But again, he could come back on a short-term deal. But we know there's probably going to be a transition here sometime soon from Tavares to Matthews because we know this is Matthews' team now.
So with all this said, the draft, free agency, coaching carousel, what team's best positioned to win it all next year? Is the Panthers in a position to repeat? I'm not asking you to make a prediction.
Yeah.
Top contenders right now based off of what you've seen in the offseason.
All right, so top contenders, I think Edmonton should be able to get back there. It should be a top contender. I think the champs, you always got to look at the champs, right? You got to look at Florida, even though they lost a couple of good pieces on back end, and they lost some depth with Stenlund and Lomberg, and obviously Montour on the back end, and we don't really know what they're going to do with Aaron Ekblad moving forward. That being said, I think Florida's there. I think, obviously Colorado's still a threat, but they got to get better goaltending, and they got to find a number 2 center. I don't think Gabriel Landeskog's coming back. Edmonton's up there for sure. New Jersey has to be up there because of the moves that they made. Nashville, I know if you look at their odds, they're down on the list, but I think Nashville is a team that you have to watch because
Devils?
I said New Jersey. Yeah, the Devils are up there for
Stanley
me.
Cup contender.
I think New Jersey is a Stanley Cup contender. I do believe it. I really do believe it. They have the talent. They've addressed their needs. They have the goaltender that can get it done. Like Jacob Markstrom can get you wins when you need them. And you have Jake Allen to shoulder the load a little bit. So I think that's a good pairing there. Nashville, I said, obviously Toronto down on the list but they made good moves, and you never know. Maybe this is the year you write them off and say, hey man, it's not Toronto's year. This is maybe they figure out a way, but Dallas is still kicking around, kicking tires. So I don't put Tampa up there anymore. I just don't like what they did. I don't like it.
Yeah, that's one of my questions. People who have been perennial contenders of recent vintage, who's most likely to fail and maybe even miss the playoffs altogether? Would you put the Lightning in that category?
I don't know if the Lightning are going to miss the playoffs, but I don't think they're as good as they were. Again, you want to talk about being financially responsible. And that was a word that Julian Breezeball used a lot. But then, so why do you pick? So we don't want to pay Steven Stamkos, but we're going to take on $6.75 million of Ryan McDonough to improve our defense, and we're going to give Jake Getzel $9 million and Victor Hedman $8 million. Okay, and then so again, I'm not the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm not in the room. I'm not there. But those were some head-scratching decisions. We saw the Lightning kind of get bounced by the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers have become the Lightning now. I don't know if they're going to get to a third straight final. That would be very, very impressive if they did. Look, Vasilevsky's going to have a bounce-back year. He's going to be fully healthy, but I just don't think see them making a deep run. I know their defense has improved a little bit, but McDonough's getting up in age too. What can we see from them? I think Boston's a team that you kind of have to say, okay, they got their moves. They've been, what can they do with Swayman? They're probably still they maybe still be a top 3 team in the division, but are they close to a border wild card team? Could they be a contender? Maybe they make the run that no one expects them to make a run and they finally do it. I put Colorado up there, but the more I think about it, you can't have everything just run through Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar. You eventually got to find something else. And their goaltending has held them back the last couple of years. Even when Darcy Kemper was there, they won in spite of Kemper, not because of Kemper. And, Kemper's now in LA because, they moved Pierre-Luc Dubois from LA to Washington. And they picked up Kemper. But, something's got to click there because, again, Landeskog not being there, they just don't have that number 2 center. To me, I mean, they made a deep run, but they lost to a superior Dallas team. And so that's a team, you're not sure about. Colorado. Does Vancouver take a step back this year? If they get the goaltending, they may be able to threat, but not sure as high as the Edmonton Oilers are. And again, there's LA, but I don't know if they're they made some decent moves, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure if they're a contender per se. And I have to look, we stay with the city, right? And everybody's going to say, oh, what about the New York Rangers? I'm not sure. But look, they're going to be a playoff team. I'm not sure if they're going to be a Stanley Cup team. They got to improve this roster.
Who's one team that out of nowhere could make a run at the playoffs we aren't expecting, that nobody's expecting?
Utah.
I was going to ask about Utah.
Utah. I think Utah is going to be that team this year. Now, I'm saying that they may go on an early run and just fade, but I think Utah's a team you have to watch because they made so many good moves. They got a hungry, young team that moved from Arizona. They're playing in a professional building now. There's, Ryan Smith wants this team to compete. I think Utah is going to be a team everybody's going to want to watch.
Is it still the hockey club? Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, that's what we're going. Well, so funny story about that. So it's the Utah Hockey Club, but I have a feeling when everything is all said and done, it's going to be the Yeti because Bill Armstrong during the draft was talking about, oh, yeah, this player coming on, can't wait to have him as a Yeti, and he slipped the tongue. Yeah, he slipped the tongue. So I have a feeling that might be the name going forward.
That's interesting. I was wondering if you would say Utah when I threw that question out there. So
I just like what they did, and I just have this feeling. I think they're going to be more like Vegas than Seattle. I just think that they're going to be a team that they're going to want to compete right away, and Ryan Smith's not going to be afraid to be aggressive. And Vegas, look, they lost a lot of players too, and are they going to be? And I forgot to put they're in the Pacific Division, so Seattle's behind Vegas now too. So. But is Vegas really a cup contender anymore for what they've lost? Thompson's not there. Marshall still. Stevenson. Manta's not there anymore. So,
we talked about Vegas and their success there and now the draft being out there. You feel like Vegas, their success, not just on the ice, but, at the box office and everything else, has led to the NFL coming there and now Major League Baseball coming.
100%.
You think the NFL and Major League Baseball may have stayed away if we hadn't had the success from Vegas?
I think the NFL was probably going to be there anyway. I think the NFL was probably going no matter what.
Yeah.
But I think the NHL wanted to be there first. Just because if the NFL was there first, the Golden Knights would have been like an afterthought.
That's a good point.
So the fact that they got there first, the success of the Vegas franchise, the Golden Knights, the NFL team's there, but it seems like it's more of a hockey town, right? Like the Raiders are there, but
it doesn't feel like
it's a football city. It feels like it's a hockey city because the team's been so successful.
Well, the A's aren't going to change that when they get there.
No, the A's don't. Yeah, the A's aren't going to change that at all.
They're getting there. I think when I turned 75 in 11 years, I think it's when they will finally move to Vegas. I'm not sure. But
all right. So I thought that was coming sooner.
It's like 5 years away.
Oh my God.
They're going to play in Sacramento in an 8,000 seat stadium for the next.
That's worse than what the Coyotes did.
It's just, you can't make this stuff up.
Nope.
Before we finish with hockey, and I'll talk to you for just a few minutes about college football real quick, but I'll have you on because we're on hiatus for the month of July, and we come back like we have in the other years. But I think the first week I come back, I'm going to have you on so we can talk more college football. But wrapping up hockey, what else? I mean, we covered a lot of stuff. Is there anything that you want to pass on as far as what we've seen or what we expect to see? We talked about the international event next year, which we're all going to be excited about.
That's going to be fun. I mean, the Four Nations face-off, get ready, folks, because that's going to be awesome hockey. You're going to have USA Canada play up in Montreal on the Saturday night during this break. You're going to so it's going to be Montreal and Boston are going to be two venues, two original 6 venues, obviously iconic hockey place cities. Yep. So on President's Day, I believe they're going to go bean pot style. So if you haven't seen the bean pot, there's 2 games during the day. There's you're
buffering a little bit there.
Have either hard hockey league coming in. You're
buffering a little bit. We didn't get much.
The National Hockey League coming in. They're going to do the same thing.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, repeat the whole bean pot scenario.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Sorry for the buffing. And here it goes again. But so basically, if you haven't seen the bean pot, you have Harvard, Northeastern, Boston College, Boston University all played. That's never the matchup. But if what they're going to do is on President's Day, they're going to have 2 games. They're going to have one early and then one later in the day. And then the winners go and play championship later in the week. So that's kind of cool that you're going to get 2 games in one day in one city. So there's just a lot of excitement around the Four Nations face-off.
Could we expect to see Jim Biringer on the ice at the Four Nations? Not playing. I mean, could we expect you in the building?
Yeah, I'll be in the building for both Montreal and Boston. That's the plan anyway.
So I threw that out there. Anything else that you want to kind of recap or look forward to in the National Hockey League? or anywhere else in hockey, I guess?
No, just really realistically, just ready for the new season to come. And camp's coming around, so just ready to go.
Seems like we just ended, and in a month we'll be in training camp. These seasons get so long.
I know. September's coming around. I mean, the big thing is just watch out for those RFAs. I think Swayman, Natchez. Let's see if there's some major trades that come in August. I think there might be a second wave that'll come early August after things die down a little bit. So I think now that with Bowman, the Bowman hire, I think you may have another week off, and then maybe early August, and maybe we see some more things happen.
You want to throw, and again, I guess I think you could hear me when I was saying when we start back up with the college football huddle, we'll have you on that first week, and we'll talk a lot of football. Because Jim is not just a hockey expert; he's very good in college football and all sports. But college football is another place we lean at him. We both root for the Miami Hurricanes, and again, fairly strong preseason expectations for a team that I'm not sure has earned it. But Cameron Ward, coming from Washington State, has energized the fan base a little bit. A lot of predictions that they'll make the 12-team playoff. I'm not sold.
I'm not sold on that. I'm not. Look, as much as I love the U, right? I love the U. I love watching them play. There were games last year that they should have won, and they could have been in a better bowl game, and they could have had a chance to win the ACC. The Georgia Tech game, forget it. That game was just abysmal. But I don't understand why they're ranked so high, and they haven't done squat in years. And look, I know the ACC is down, but there's still a lot of good teams, and there's a team, their rival is still pretty good too. And I know they want to leave the ACC, and nobody wants them, which is kind of ironic that they want to leave the ACC, and the SEC and Big Ten are just like, nah, we don't want you, which is kind of funny. So, look, I mean, the ACC is wide open because we don't know how good Clemson really is. But we know, NC State's still good. North Carolina, what are they going to do? Wake still there. Duke's still pretty good team. Florida State's still there. I mean, it is open for them to be successful, but they gotta put wins together, and they can't lose to bad teams.
Oh, I mean, to get multiple teams in there, they're going to have teams, with one loss after the championship game to get two teams.
I just don't see it just the way, because the Big Ten and the SEC are just so loaded. And so is the Big 12.
The Big 12 is interesting. The Big 12 is definitely a full step behind the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah.
But as far as talent and having really good teams, but as far as competitiveness, there's 7 or 8 teams that could finish between first and 8.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Exciting league. Now, how they'll do in the playoff is anybody's guess, but I'm a big Mike Gundy fan, and I like Oklahoma State out there this year myself. But
so I have to say this. So I was listening to Nick Saban during SEC Media Week, and everybody's talking about Texas, and Texas could win the SEC and all that stuff. Look, folks, watched Texas a long time. All right. They finally got back last year. They've had couple good seasons, right? They finally got back to the playoff, won the division, all that stuff. They're not running the SEC.
No way.
I hate to break it to you. They're not running the SEC. They're not winning the SEC. They're not getting. They may make the championship game, but they're not running the SEC. They're not running it like they ran the Big 12, and they had run the Big 12 for years because Oklahoma was running down everybody. TCU was up there. Kansas State was up there. Oklahoma State was running teams. Texas was not running the Big 12 for many years. So we need to pump the brakes a little bit on the Texas talk in the SEC, because there's still a lot of very, very good SEC teams that were even at the bottom of the SEC that could pull out some victories.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be exciting. Listen, I'm trying very hard because into this more. I'm trying very hard because I'm trying to accept the new reality. I'm trying to accept that amateurism is gone, and if I can get to the games, and the games are more exciting, more energy in the buildings than they are on Sundays, like this. then I'll be okay. And I think this year we may have that. I think this first 12-team playoff is likely to be very exciting because I think there's a bunch of teams that can win this. And the team I like the most right today, and it might change before September comes, is Oregon. I like Oregon a lot. I like their chances to do well is their first year in the Big Ten and do well in the inaugural 12-team playoff.
Yeah, Oregon still got a nice squad. A lot of people are picking Oregon to win the Big Ten. Ohio State's still up there, but Ryan Day's definitely on a hot seat, man. I don't care what they do in the regular season. If they don't beat Michigan,
he's in the hottest seat of all.
Oh, he's on the hottest seat. I was surprised he survived 3 straight losses. He ain't surviving 4 straight losses to Michigan. And Ohio State's a better team than Michigan this year, so there's no excuse for them to lose.
Ohio State's they've gone on a spending spree like an NFL team for crying out loud.
Yeah, so I think obviously, and I think Caleb DeBoer, there's high expectations to be in there for Caleb DeBoer down in Alabama because Alabama is a perennial playoff team. Let's see what he can do in his first year, but I think the expectation is that team has to be a playoff team.
I think Caleb DeBoer is a really good coach, and it's hard for anybody to be the guy who follows the guy.
Right.
It was that way in Alabama. Everybody thinks Nick Saban walked into this wonderful situation in Alabama. They've been trying to, when he got there, they've been trying to replace Bear Bryant for 20 years.
Yeah.
They won 1 national championship in 20 years, and Nick Saban won, 6 and...
Yeah, 6 and what?
Not even 20, I don't think.
I don't think so. Like 6 in 15 years or something, something like that.
So
yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into all that in a few weeks. I'll have you on the college football huddle, and when we go back live on Wednesdays, probably the first or second Wednesday in August. I got to check the schedule, but I'll have you on if you're free, hopefully that night, and we'll talk a lot of college football. Jim, I got to tell you, I've had a great time reviewing this with you. As we talked about at the top, as you've kind of worked yourself into the position you're in today, nobody's happier for you than I am. Maybe your girlfriend's happier for you, but I'm very happy to see where you are, and I mean that with all sincerity. I'm glad to see you riding the wave, as it were. So congratulations on that, and we love what you bring to our shows as well.
Keith, always a pleasure to be with you, man. I love being on the show. Never forget where I come from. Never forget the guys that have had me on from the start. And always love to be on the show talking sports with you. It doesn't matter, hockey, college football, it doesn't matter. I just love being here with you guys.
Well, thanks for being here this morning or this evening, guys. I won't try to deceive you. We taped this on Wednesday night. As you can see, pre-recorded. And you're going to see me in a different shirt in a minute. So, Jim, I appreciate you coming with us tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Can't wait to talk to you again. Take care.
Guys, great interview with Jim Biringer. He brings a lot to the table in the NHL, and put this up one more time. Oh, it's not Brett Saberhagen. What are you doing here? I got guys that have been on years ago there. Anyway, my thanks to Jim Biringer. Great insight into the NHL, and we'll get into more college football talk, which I know Danny Fuller and Chris are interested in. Chris, if you want to message me that question, I'll send it over to Jim and get his comments on it. I don't know that we'll have him on live. So, not this Sunday anyway. Sunday's going to be a little tough because we're getting ready to leave in a couple hours, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to Mystic Seaport, which you guys on the East Coast, I'm sure, are familiar with. Beautiful spot out in Connecticut, about a 3-hour drive for us. So we'll be out there all weekend with the family, the entire family. We rented a house today till Monday morning. I got to drive home early Monday morning for work. But we'll be out there for the weekend. I do intend to attempt to do the show Sunday, internet permitting. And I don't know about MLB update will probably not be live today. I think I put something up to play. No, I didn't put anything up to play in that spot, just on Roku. If I get a chance and we get there early enough, I may go on for a little bit some point tonight. Probably won't be at 3:00, and won't be live on Roku, but we'll maybe for you Facebook and YouTubers, we'll do a little something before everybody arrives. And once I get settled in and a beer in my hand, because we did have some stuff to talk about. But I'm glad you guys tuned in today. What do you got here, Danny? Looks like the Stankies. I do have Yankee blue on today. Yes, not Dodger blue. We won't be going any casinos, but the weather's too nice. If I was out there in the wintertime, I would. We got a full weekend planned, man. We're right near the beach and sit under an umbrella on the beach with some beers and chill out, and then go out to dinner at night. Maybe check out the aquarium, and my granddaughter will be with us, so we'll have lots of fun doing that. A quick programming note. We'll try to do maybe a quick MLB update on the fly. So Chris, if you're still with us, you could let Danny know if we go live. Lots to talk about in the MLB. So if we don't get to it today, hopefully we can go live Sunday with a stream of consciousness and get into the no-hitters. And rest in peace to Mike Ferraro, by the way, former Yankee coach, Kansas City coach and interim manager. A couple of notes before I wrap up. I don't know. He talked about his interest in football and some other sports in the very beginning, Rick, but he didn't really answer. I don't think he really mentioned whether he played other sports. So we'll get that information out of Rick or not Rick. You're Rick when he comes on again, or maybe I'll ask him when I ask him Chris's question. So. Chris is the best, man. And by the way, kudos. In case we don't do an MLB update, last week, Chris had put up some Jackie Bradley Jr. stats from the Long Island Ducks, the independent league team. And listen, it's not bad. My point about the Mexican League or the independent leagues, right? I don't know how much I can judge whether a guy's ready to come back or not. But 2 days after that, and I get a laugh sometimes because I joke around that I could play in those leagues. Not today. Maybe when I was 20, I could have sat on a bench, but certainly not now. We joke about it. It's just good fun. But Chris made that comment about Jackie Bradley, or put the stats up what Jackie Bradley had, and the Mets signed Jackie Bradley Jr. this week. I don't know what he's got left. His last 4 or 5 years in the majors were terrible. So we'll see what happens there with them and the Mets. But the Mets are playing good baseball. Don't want to get into too much of that because I've got to wrap it up. And thank you, Rick. We're going to have a great weekend. There'll be a bunch of us, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We got some great stuff coming up on the 101 with Keith Engle, which I talked about at the top, and I'll talk about now. Next Friday, August 2nd, I've got Mike Bass, former defensive back for the Washington Redskins. You may remember him if you're old enough, running back that touchdown pass. That errant pass Garo Yepremian threw for the Dolphins in 1973. Dolphins undefeated season. The Redskins only points that day. I met Mike Bass when he was running this little, tiki bar outside of a hotel in Freeport, Nassau. I'm sorry, Freeport, Rhode Island. I'll get there. Freeport, Bahamas. We spent a lot of time there that week, and I got to know Mike pretty well that time. He doesn't remember; it was 40 years ago, but he'll be on with us on Friday. On the 9th, I've got Brian McRae, former Major League Baseball outfielder with the Royals, where he played for his dad, Hal McRae, great Major League Baseball player. Tremendous DH in his time. He played with the Cubs and the Mets, so he'll be with us on the 9th, which we're looking forward to. The 16th is open right now. I'll fill it. I really thought I had Rick Barry, former NBA great Hall of Famer, but he's kind of gone dark on me. I thought I had him scheduled. We'll get him in. Jeff Fry's also been a possibility, but he's got a event that day, former Major League Baseball player. So the 16th, so we still got to fill in, which I'm sure we can get it. If I don't hear back from Rick Barry this weekend, I'm going to probably reach out to Larry Sorensen to have him on if he's free to talk some Major League Baseball. Former Major League Baseball player, Larry Sorensen. We'll talk about the game today, and we'll talk some college football with him as he's associated with Wake Forest. On the 23rd, Sidney Moncrief, former NCAA great at Arkansas, played for the great Eddie Sutton there, made a run to, I don't know if they made a Final Four run. I'll have to double check that. I know they made it to the a couple times to the Elite Eight, but great player with the Milwaukee Bucks as well. Tremendous player, underrated player in my mind. And then on the 30th, Ernie D. Gregorio, former Providence star, played with Marvin Bad News Barnes, or Tyron Barnes, however you want to remember him. Played for the great Dave Gavitt, who was the founder of the Big East. And Ernie was a very, very good player with the Buffalo Braves before he got injured. So we'll have some good stuff coming out pretty soon for sure. What we got here? A lot of stuff here. A couple comments here. Where are you? Rick, good luck in the therapy and recovery, Rick. I agree. Thank you, Danny, for throwing that out there. Rick, the best to you, and do the things they tell you to do. After the Washington Redskins. Absolutely. Danny Fuller, thank you. Everybody's got to work on their health. I'm going to work on my health with a beer this weekend, but ABA, great. Rick Barry for sure. Rick Barry health issues. I saw he's done some interviews recently that I've seen, and he was interactive with me for a little bit. He asked me what time we would be doing it, and I've kind of lost him. Hopefully Rick will reach back out to me, but we'll get somebody in if he doesn't. Underhanded free throws. Rick Barry is a great player. His reputation, I think he takes it kind of rough. I mean, he was a great player. He shared the basketball. I'm not sure, he's got a bit of a reputation that I think is unfair, but we can get into that for sure. Former Blue Jay sensation, Brian McCray. Did he play with the Blue Jays? I don't remember him being with the Blue Jays, but I haven't looked at his baseball reference. I just know he played with the Cubs. I know he started with the Royals and played for his dad. Played with the Mets. Made him play with Rockies. He moved around a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was there with the Blue Jays. And you're there in Toronto, Chris, so you would know. And happy birthday to Greg Colbert. It does. I think we're going to have the weather's supposed to be picture perfect. 80, 82, 81, 83 every day, 60 at night. Can't ask for better. We had a really cool little house that we rented. Fire pits. We're not too far from the beach. We're not too far from anything. So we'll have a lot of fun. I'll drink too much. I'll eat too much. And we'll come on Sunday and have a little fun for as long as we can. We probably won't go 3 hours Sunday, guys. It could be an abbreviated show, but we'll get on at some point. And I'll be on with Mac and Jack at 8 o'clock Sunday as well. So anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in today. I'm glad we could wrap it up. We got lots of good stuff coming on the 101 show in August. And I got to start booking now that I got to get that 16th full. But once we're done there, it's much easier to start planning out for September. So appreciate everybody's following the show. Guys, if you haven't followed the show, get out there and hit the follow and send it to your friends. Invite your friends. We're really starting to move. So I definitely will. I appreciate it. Beer and food in that order. Wife, beer, and food. Yes, definitely wife first, because I need her to drive. I'm just kidding. I love my wife. My wife is the best thing that ever happened to me, believe me. Anybody who ever tells you differently doesn't know what they're talking about. By the way, a quick shout out to my dad who's recovering from some surgery. My dad's 88 and had some issues the last year or so, but they've been working on a fix, and he's had a few complications and struggled a little bit. If he's listening today, he knows I love him, and we wish him the best. And I checked in with them this morning. So they checked in with me before I got a chance to check in with them, but we wish him well as well. And I appreciate you guys following the show and being so supportive. You have made this a passion play for me. So you guys have a great Friday. Maybe we'll see you later with a quick MLB update at some point. Be checking your Facebook notifications. If we go live, you'll know. And we'll see you later. Have a great day. See you Sunday.
You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.